Oh hey, so what are the differences between Dior Homme Original, this right here, it says Dior Homme Original on it, versus Dior Homme 2020, also Dior Homme Original before it was called Dior Homme Original. Three different fragrances. Are they the same? Are they different? I'm going to let you know all about these three coming right up. Yes, today I'm talking about Dior Homme. Dior Homme 2011 is when the original launched, which is this. Then in 2020 they launched Dior Homme 2020, this one right here. And then they retitled the original Dior Homme to Dior Homme Original like this. So are there differences? Well, there's differences, lots of them, between these two and 2020. Even though this is called Dior Homme, this is called Dior Homme Original, they're very similar. There's some minor differences, but I'll let you know what they are. But before I do, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So I speak a lot about Dior Homme Parfum, Dior Homme Intense, but I don't speak a lot about Dior Homme, the original. And Dior Homme, I guess, was my gateway into Dior Homme Parfum, which first I sampled Dior Homme, then I sampled Dior Homme Intense, or I think I might have done Dior Homme Eau, which was an exclusive to Macy's for a while. Then I sampled the Dior Homme Intense, and then eventually into Dior Homme Parfum. Dior Homme Parfum is my favorite out of the 3 or 4 or 5 different flankers, but I rarely speak about Dior Homme. So I found a bottle of Dior Homme Original, which now says Dior Homme Original, as I was saying. So now there's 3 different versions, but you know, these two, the original Dior Homme Original, now Dior Homme Original, are very, very similar. I'm going to tell you the differences between these two first, and they're minute amounts of differences. And then I'm going to tell you the differences between Dior Homme Original, which is what's being sold now, versus Dior Homme 2020. And one thing I should say, they're not selling Dior Homme Original here in the States. In fact, it's not on the Dior.com website. If you go to Dior.fr, you will find it on the website there. So I don't know if this will eventually come to the discounters here. I'm not 100% sure. If it does, maybe you'll take a, buy it or take a crack at it if you want. But these two, Dior Homme Original and Dior Homme 2020, are so different. But let's start with the Dior Homme and Dior Homme Original comparison. They're very, very similar. And I bought my Dior Homme Original before it was called Dior Homme Original. This is getting confusing. Before the pandemic. Although, yeah, I think I bought it probably about 7-8 months prior to Dior launching Dior Homme 2020, which launched just before the pandemic started. So at that time, I did not know that they were coming out with a new version of Dior Homme 2020, or the Dior Homme. So I had a couple of bottles, and then that's how I have this particular one that's not called Dior Homme Original anymore. So I tested the two side by side, several wearings, and I noticed that my new one, Dior Homme Original, in the new bottle, does have a little more of a fresher experience. Like, it does smell a little more fresher, as in not necessarily fresh notes, but fresher as in not old and not expired kind of a thing. So there is something different about that. But both of them, to me, wore very similarly, with the original lasting just a little longer than the new one. But I think that's because of the concentration and the juice kind of getting a little old. Because of that, that's why I'm experiencing a little more of a fresher with the notes. It seems a little more umphier notes, whereas when the the fragrance sits in the bottle, it might get tired. So there is kind of that thing going for it. But once you get past that, the two fragrances are very, very similar. In fact, if you don't really focus on the smell, you might not notice differences. As I said, the only differences I noticed, the freshness of the juice Whereas the notes are the same, everything wears the same, longevity is about the same as well, except this did last a little longer, just a little longer than the new version of the Dior Homme original. But as far as like projection and things like that, everything is the same. It wore very, very similar, and I got about the same performance, with the original being a little more longer lasting. But I do enjoy this particular fragrance a lot more than the Dior Homme 2020. The reason is this particular fragrance is lots of iris, and they've stripped away the iris in the 2020. They've gone completely woody, whereas this one was all very powdery iris. It had notes of iris, cardamom, vetiver, according to the Dior.fr website, but according to a few of the databases, there is a little bit of a leathery touch here with a little patchouli. I definitely pick up lavender here, some light cacao touches, amber, bergamot, and sage. So those all come in with this particular fragrance, and it's such a great fragrance, such a great fragrance. It is really great for an eau de toilette, and I think a lot of brands like Prada, Valentino kind of tried to emulate this particular fragrance with their own takes on this particular fragrance, because a lot of these brands were launching iris-focused fragrances, which I think the trend has kind of gone. Is iris no longer trendy? Is it why Dior launched Dior Homme 2020 as a complete woody, fresh woody fragrance? I don't know, but perhaps the iris trend has kind of gone. But I think this one I'm going to have to cherish forever. I'm going to store it away in a cool place, although here in the studio it's very, very cool, and it's, you know, temperature controlled and things like that, so this will stay fresh. I think what I need to do is probably put it in a box so it will keep it out of light as well. But the Dior Homme Original I'll use now, and as I said, I think the concentration, what I should say is juice does get old and it gets a little concentrated. I don't know if that's the reason why I think this particular fragrance is performing just a little better than the new version of Dior Homme Original. I don't know. But with my experience, the juice does get a little deeper, richer, and concentrated, so I'm thinking it's wearing a little heavier on me. That's why I'm getting a little better longevity with this one in comparison to Dior Homme Original from 2020, where I'm experiencing the notes to be a lot fresher and a little more oomphier. Does that make sense? Anyway, those are the differences between these two. If you have the original Dior Homme Original, before it was called Dior Homme Original, you're probably fine with it. Unless you run out, then you're probably going to need to buy the new Dior Homme Original. So let's talk about the differences between Dior Homme Original and Dior Homme 2020. So confusing. They should have called this something completely different. That is my first remark about this. I mentioned it in my review from 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago. This should not have been called Dior Homme because it confuses things. But then again, it's Dior Homme. I guess it's their men's fragrance, and I guess that's what they wanted to do. But it just makes it a lot confusing because they have Dior Homme 2020 in Eau de Toilette, but they have Dior Homme Parfum, Dior Homme Intense, Dior Homme Original here, all with this particular DNA. Will they be launching a Dior Homme Intense, Dior Homme Parfum, Dior Homme Sport, Dior Homme Cologne in this particular new fragrance? It's just really confusing. And then if they do, will it compete with the Dior Homme Intense of the Dior Homme Original, Dior Homme Parfum of the Dior Homme Original? That gets a little too confusing. I don't know what the heck they're going to do. Are they going to discontinue this whole original Dior Homme series? I don't know. But personally, as I said, they should have called this something completely different. It would have made more sense, a brand new fragrance launch, but they're capitalizing on the fact that Dior Homme is popular. So, what do they launch? Another fragrance called Dior Homme, and it's 2020. So the differences between these two are, as I said, all woody, but has fresh notes. This is iris focused, does have fresh notes, but of course, as I said, with the Dior Homme Intense and Dior Homme Parfum, it does get deeper and richer. But here, it's Cedar, Patchouli, Vetiver, according to the Dior Homme or Dior.com website. But there's also spicy touches here with musk, pink pepper, Elemi, and bergamot in the notes as well. So in the end, yes, it wears fresh. It's a very fresh, woody experience, but it does come in spicy. The Dior.com website only mentioned 4 notes: cedar, patchouli, vetiver, spices, but I am picking up musk in here. I am picking up pink pepper or some pepper spiciness. There's a little bit of an Elemi resinous touch, and then some bergamot, because it's totally fresh, but they don't credit the freshness with this particular fragrance, although they do say it's fresh on the Dior website, but I don't mention bergamot, and I think I'm getting the freshness from bergamot in the fragrance. You know, it's an okay fragrance. It's much better than a lot of other designer fragrances because it's all woody fresh, lots of woods, earthy, you know, notes with the patchouli and the vetiver, and then of course lots of cedary touches with this one. And it could be ISOE Super with that note as well, because ISOE Super smells of cedar, and of course I think they could be using ISOE Super in here. Maybe it's the real cedar, I don't know, but it's very, very cedary with that earthiness and the grassiness with the patchouli and the vetiver. That's what I get with this one. And as I said, it's a solid release, nothing groundbreaking, nothing original. It's just very, very mass. It smells like people would like it or appreciate this kind of a smell. So in the end, it's a crowd pleaser. I think it's definitely a crowd pleaser, but for me, it's not Dior Homme whatsoever. It's a brand new fragrance, and brands are doing this way too much. Capitalizing on the name of another or a former fragrance and calling it the same thing. Look at Mugler. They just called Alien Goddess, but it smells nothing like Alien. So brands are doing this way too much, and of course Dior did it with Dior Homme 2020. Anyway, I'm complaining now, but that's what the differences are between these 3 fragrances. This is something that I was requested to do. One of you did send me an email, so when I got my hands on an actual Dior Homme original titled fragrance, I thought I'd do this video. And again, there's not much difference between the 2 Dior Hommes, the Dior Homme from 2011 and then Dior Homme original from 2020, but loads of differences between Dior Homme original and Dior Homme 2020. Man, I keep messing up with that one. They're so confusing with all the different names. It could have been something like, why didn't they come up with something like Sauvage, something different like that? Again, Sauvage is another story. They kind of capitalized on Eau Sauvage with Sauvage, and they should have done something like that here. Although come up with a brand new name, you know? We need a new name, new fragrance kind of a thing. Anyway, those are my thoughts on these 3 fragrances. What are your thoughts on these 3 fragrances? Do you have any comparison of the 3? Have you tested them out? Have you tried the Dior Homme Original before it was called Dior Homme Original to now when it's called Dior Homme Original? Let me know, put a comment down. And have you compared the Dior Homme Original to Dior Homme 2020? Because you'll notice definitely lots of differences between Dior Homme Original to Dior Homme 2020, but hardly any differences between Dior Homme before it was called Dior Homme Original to Dior Homme Original. Anyway, put some comments down. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd like to find out if you tested these out, if you've compared them, what your thoughts are, so I can see if mine matches yours. Other than that, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.